My name is Rachel Kaplan. I am here representing April and Kelly's Kitchen. You are here for the third of our four-course series on the intersection of food justice and disability justice. We have a lot of content and presenters for you today in a very short window of time. I think we may end up going over by maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So if you need to leave right at 4:30, that's fine. We are recording. And so we will be able to share the recording and any information that you missed afterwards. So first, we are going to hear from Susannah Scaroni. She spoke with us last time about the intersection of nutrition and disability and why some of those benchmarkers for health or nutrition are more difficult to gauge for people with disabilities. And I know that there were some people that had questions for her that did not get a chance to ask their question. And so I wanted to give just the first couple minutes for everyone to be able to, if they had a question, ask her whatever they wanted to ask. We're going to make the first 10 minutes just a little bit of an opportunity for a Q&A with Susannah. So on that note, Susannah, I am just going to pass it over to you. If anybody wants to put their questions in the chat, they can. If you would prefer to unmute and ask your question, that is fine as well.
Thanks, Rachel. Yep, it's great to be here with everyone. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm a wheelchair user, and it's a little bit of a different animal. So happy to talk to you or answer any questions that you may have. And as Rachel said, yeah, I'll be looking at that chat too if people feel more comfortable writing it in. And just as a description, I am a Caucasian female. I have blonde hair and wearing a black tank top.
Okay.
And I will also put my email in here. I know I got some really good questions via email after last time. And any questions do arise, feel free to send me an email.
Great. I see that in the chat. If people think of questions as we go, especially as we talk about this content, then we can go ahead and just address that as it comes. Since there don't seem to be any questions right now, we'll keep moving. And if there are questions for Susannah, we will keep making some space for those. So I appreciate you all.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. So the first thing that I would like to do is I have a video that I would like to show you. We have a couple of individuals with disabilities who have experiences with disordered eating. And so I want them to be able to share their experience with you. Opal has made a video for us, and so I'm going to share it. It's about 10 minutes. It does have ASL and captioning included. So you'll be able to access that video very easily. And I will share it with everybody in our follow-up email, so you have it as well. But she's just going to share a little bit about her experience. And I think through hearing Opal's experience and then hearing from our next speaker, Jenny Border, who is also an individual with multiple disabilities and disordered eating, you'll kind of get an idea on why this is such a complex thing that occurs in people with disabilities. Because we know that eating disorders are pretty layered and multifaceted anyways. And when you add disability into the mix, it just makes it even more complicated for that person to navigate those thoughts and those behaviors. So let me just share that video with you really quickly.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Opal Besaw. I am an actively recovering eating disorder survivor. And I wanted take a minute to talk to you all about my experience with the intersection of disordered eating and disability. What helped me, what didn't help me, what you might want to be aware of, and what might help you. Really, I should probably start by talking about my personal experience and what may or may not have caused my eating disorder. I am a helper at heart. I like to make things as easy as possible for people. And because of that, there was a point in my life where I often tried to keep my weight down because the way my cerebral palsy presents itself, I am at a point in my life where I still need a lot of assistance with my activities of daily living and some assistance with transfers, which means sometimes people just have to pick me up, and in order to minimize the likelihood of people getting hurt from picking me up, I tried to keep myself small so that neither myself or anyone else would be injured from having to take care of me. So I started trying to restrict the amount of food I ate. And for a while there, I wasn't acting on it all the time, but my eating disorder seemed to have consumed my brain. I thought about it all the time, what I had eaten that day, how it was going to metabolize in my body, whether it was going to make me gain weight. And for a while there, I thought that just eating in general might make me gain weight. Really, the hardest part of asking for help is, in my experience, is taking that first step and admitting that you need the help. So what worked for me, I think, because like I said, I'm a natural helper, was to talk about it to someone in my family who I trusted, who also has similar experience, and then that way we could help each other work through and hold each other accountable for keeping ourselves safe and healthy. And so I have worked a lot with my loved ones, particularly my Nana, about making sure that I eat a good amount of healthy food in a day. And I'm still not perfect. There are still some days that I don't eat and as much as I should. I always eat at least something, but I don't always eat as much as I should, and I don't always eat healthy. And so I think another important piece to this is realizing that you're not gonna be perfect, especially not starting out. There are still gonna be days where it's hard to get yourself to eat, but just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, right? People with disabilities do hard things every day. We have to. That's part of what it means to have a disability. If we didn't do hard things, we would be dead. And that's something that I have to remind myself every day when I sit down to eat. I have to remind myself to be grateful for the food that I'm about to put in my body, because that's what's gonna keep me alive. I have two choices. I can either keep trying to get better, or I can get worse and get sick. But giving myself that ultimatum doesn't always make it easy. What does make it easy is having people around me who know my story, who understand, and who support me. So, if you are struggling, I encourage you to find someone to lean on. It doesn't have to be a family member. Just someone that you trust. Someone that maybe might understand. Lean on that person and let them help you, even when it's hard. And remember that you are a beautiful person who deserves to live a beautiful life. And you know what? The way to truly be free from an eating disorder is to say, I see you. I know that you're there, but I refuse to let you run my life. So, if you're struggling, do your best to be brave. Ask for help. Remember that somebody loves you. Somebody needs you to stay healthy. And if you can't think of anyone to ask for help, the lovely people who are putting on this webinar, myself included, would be happy to support you. So just reach out to ask us for help. And we will be happy to build you up. Thank you.
And so now we are going to take some time to hear from Jenny Border, who is going to talk to us about her unique experience of being at the intersection of having multiple disabilities, one of those being disordered eating, cultural beliefs that she grew up with, and then food kind of as a reward system and how that has shaped her. And Jenny, you're going to be talking to us live. I'm very excited
Yep.
about that. And I'm going to go ahead and give it over to you if you want to do an introduction of yourself and a visual description.
Okay, Rachel, is the visual description of what I am right now, not just in the picture, correct?
Yes, what you are right now.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you. I don't see me on here too, but anyway, hi, I'm Jenny Border, obviously. I am a Asian American female woman with long, well, medium length black hair. I don't see my actual video on there, so I'm just having a look at myself here. With a maroon shirt on, sitting in my wheelchair in a somewhat messy living room right now. Like Rachel said, I have multiple disabilities. The first one most people see with me is my physical disability, which is arthrogryposis, which basically means that I have very contracted joints, and due to that, my muscles didn't develop correctly when at birth, and that's why I'm in a wheelchair, and I can't really use most of my limbs that well. But what I can do is pretty good, I guess. When originally asked to do this, I very gung-ho at just saying my story, but then I got really anxious, and so I'm doing it live, I guess. Anyway, big thing similar to Opal, with me and disordered eating specifically is from early on too, since I was born with my disability, I was always told I needed to stay small, needed to stay tiny, because the more weight on me, the harder it'd be for me to move. Because I can use a wheelchair. I mean, I can walk. Of course, I use a wheelchair. But due to my joints already being arthritic, basically from birth, it took a lot out on me. And one big thing that really kind of pushed me wanting to attempt to stay smaller and not let myself grow in some ways was actually the last major surgery I had to keep me ambulating. My doctors at the time, I'm glad I had the surgery. The way they had explained it to me was definitely not good. I was 8 or 9 years old and had recently just I had recently lost a brother who had the same disability. He passed not due to our disability, it just kind of just happened, I guess. Anyway, when I had the surgery, it was to keep it to allow my knees to stay straight all the time so I could walk. And the doctors had said to me, "You were the cause of this surgery. You never wanted another surgery, but you got too fat. You ate too many potatoes. This is your punishment for eating." And that would, I think, hit anyone, especially a younger person, and being an individual that is conscientious of, others, and knowing that I am different, that really made me feel crappy about myself, to be honest, and be obsessed with different food things, weight, and I should say intellectually, I'm pretty smart and stuff. And I grew up in the 90s, and if anyone knows anything with 90s diet culture, it was everywhere. So me being the nerd that I was, would like look up in encyclopedias back then about nutrition stuff and all that, and try to understand calorie intake and stuff. Yes, at 9 years old, and that really kind of messed with my head a lot. But even though I always thought about eating a lot and just like what to eat, what not to eat, and I still had my potatoes. I love my potatoes. That's just not going to quit. I don't care. Well, unless I get allergic to them somehow. But anyway, all that to say, I forgot where I was going with that. But yeah, that was one big part with me and disordered eating early on. Then, however, I should also say that, especially when we're talking about the cultural beliefs, I was adopted, and I am of South Korean descent, and I didn't have many people around me that looked Korean. And back then, and even now, you typically think a stereotype of an East Asian woman or person is very small and tiny, and I definitely never really felt that way. Or, I mean, I was short, that's for sure, very short. I always joke that I'm short and stubby. I use those words for myself but I would not use that for others. But I use those words, I should say, to kind of take back and really just accept me for who I am and love it who I am. So although the words of short and stubby may seem negative, the one I say it for myself, it is actually seemed positive and helps me have a better mindset. I don't know how to describe why that happens, but it does. But anyway, that to say, I just felt like, oh, am I not Korean enough, or am I really full Asian because I don't have, the stereotypical um body shape, it seemed like, that I would see on TV and movies or whatever, which we really didn't see many Asian characters in general back then, and even now we see them more in media, but not as much as the predominantly Caucasian individuals. So that's one big thing. Um, the other part of I wanted to talk about other disability things. Another disability that I have that's definitely invisible is I'm neurodivergent and extremely ADHD, and due to that, I take stimulant medication. If anybody knows anything about stimulant medications, that does make your appetite at times, or at least with some individuals, less, which obviously that would be, that's yay for some of the issues, but it actually has caused many other issues for me too, because due to the medicine, I have a difficult time knowing when my body actually is hungry. So, and I should also say I started this medication when I was in junior high/high school. So it would took a little bit for me to get adjusted to it. But all that to say, due to that, let me think here. Okay. Oh yeah, with my ADHD medication, I would go for days, not days, well, hours, almost a full day without eating, and then be shaky after the meds take off. And I realized, this isn't good for me, even if my physical mindset, or my mindset due to physicality with food, would say not to eat. I knew, like Opal said in her video, that to survive, I had to eat. I had to have nutrients. And what kept me to knowing I needed to have the nutrients and stuff was actually going back to my nerdy background of looking into, what calorie intake do I need of this, and seeing what I could of nutritionists, dietitians, whatever, and researching what I could on stuff. And that really helped me keep a schedule of, at least when I say I count calories, would be to since I took since I began taking my stimulant medication, to count enough calories to make sure I'm eating enough now. And that's sometimes a struggle. And so I may eat a little bit more in the evening for a couple of reasons. One, the medicines have kicked out of me, and two, to make sure I have the enough nutrients that I need each day to keep on surviving and thriving, really. Um, and I'm probably not hitting everything that's kind of in my head right now, but please know afterwards anyone can ask questions if they want to. And the third thing I was actually talking about is in college, in undergrad, I had started a really, really bad habit. And if anyone that knows me knows I'm a bit of a procrastinator on things, and I really procrastinate on writing. Uh, I'll do math, science lab stuff, do that all the time. Yay, fun. Writing, I basically hate with a passion. I'm pretty okay at it, but hate it. So, for me to get my writing done, I had started then, since I actually didn't have parents or anyone really around me. I would just live in the dorms, with friends and stuff, and they were doing all cool things. And of course, I'd want to go out, hang out with them. But when I would need to do my papers, I'd be like, okay, I cannot eat this meal or this candy bar or whatever until I got this much done. And me being a stubborn person and knowing that sometimes it's going to take a lot longer for me to get things out, not just due to my physical ability or inability, or differences, I should say, with how I type, which is typically with a stylus in my mouth, and due to due to another different disability, auditory processing disorder, I can't use speech to text. So it was all literally manual mouth typing. Um, due to that, and then the mental roadblocks that most individuals have when writing, especially people with ADHD, it I knew I'd take a long time. So I would be like, okay, I can have this whole pint of ice cream, which I'm not the healthiest at eating, I will be honest, and I love my sugar like no other. Anyone knows me knows that too. I love my sugar. But anyway, I would be like, nope, I can't have it until I get this done. And I realized even when doing this presentation, when I was supposed to do a video originally, that I was automatically telling myself I couldn't eat until I did the video. And finally, after talking to Rachel and some others, that it was like, no, Jenny, it's okay for you to eat. Let's try to accommodate you and your needs. And hence, we're doing this live video here instead of doing the pre-planned thing. So I think that's one big thing. And I guess something I wanted to kind of add that that combines all of this together is, at least in my personal experience with eating, a big part is that I've always wanted to get help, but it's been ridiculously difficult to get it due to disabilities, due to physical. Because yes, if I were to go to like an eating clinic thing, they often don't have help for people's physical disabilities there, like an inpatient like thing. And another thing also with eating and stuff is, you know, I think we all know this, that the stereotypical BMI chart or whatever you want to call it, formula stuff, is often a piece of crap for people. And that, especially for people with disabilities, it is terrible, especially if our limbs are not, average size or they don't work the way that I quote stereotypical physically able persons works, and or whatever it is, or how much energy we have to expend due to it. Um, and that really played a role in my difficulties with understanding food intake and what it should be, because I was always considered, quote, morbidly obese. And I should say my height is very short. If you could stretch me out, I'd maybe be 4'10", but that'd be lucky. Typically, it's probably closer to 4'8", 4'9", honestly. um, yeah. And oh, one thing that I know I did not say, but something that due to being adopted, I should say I was adopted at 1 year old. So it was definitely early on, but I was in a orphanage in Seoul, South Korea, in the babies, I think it was Seoul City Hospital is what they called it, which was basically just uh the old side of the city's baby orphanage. Anyway, I know I don't remember anything from when I was there, of course, but I do know from the paperwork that I had that the formula that they had given me was regular milk. And I found out, obviously, when I got here and had testing and stuff, I'm lactose intolerant. So I was very malnourished when I came here and things. And I also found out through a couple different pictures that, yes, I did get taken care of it technically in the orphanage and things like that, but the way that they give someone a bottle would be just like giving it to their baby, and they kind of have to hold it ish, even though a lot of babies can't really hold them, I guess. But especially with someone like me, which if you see in the picture, my hands are crossed there. Basically, my elbows are fused in a bent position, and my hands I don't know how to describe it, but they're in the picture they're held together, but they definitely do not work right, or like a typical person's. Anyway, all of that to say, given that the pictures and my malnourishment, in addition to being lactose intolerant and being given regular milk too, then it's suffice to assume that I probably didn't even get much of the milk in itself if I couldn't, hold up the bottle. Because back then my arms were significantly weaker and my legs were definitely not usable in any sort to help me hold the bottle. And I bring this up because on it's something that occurs often with people who are adopted too, but is that I've always had this fear of not having enough food, which adds to the complexity of feeling like I eat too much and then not enough and all these things. It's very um convoluting, or just in general, like I keep saying, complex. But I bring this up because I've been known to, for the good and the bad, to being a hoarder of food too, because I'm fearful, or have been fearful of not knowing what I'll get next. When's the next food? And due to my physical disability, I can't eat with my hands with like utensils. I eat typically with my mouth, bending down to a plate. And some foods are just plainly not easy to eat. And I'm very meticulous about how I eat, and I don't like to be messy. So things like a Chipotle big burrito, I if I were to go with friends, I have figured out a way to eat it on my own. Well, mainly on my own without someone holding it. They do have to prop it up. But if I hadn't figured out this way, I would typically just let others eat in front of me and stuff. So because I would not want, if I'm hanging out with friends and stuff, if they really want Chipotle or whatever thing that I may not be able to physically eat that well, I wouldn't want to damper their ability to have what they want, which obviously sounds a little bit bad. If they're friends, they should care about my intake too, but that's its own story of stuff. Um, but anyway, because of that, in addition to just the innate fear of not having enough food, I will hoard things for just in case. Like in my backpack, I cannot even tell you how many little random things I have in there, and pieces of candy or whatever in my van, that they may be more than a few years old, but to me, I'll eat it. Thankfully, I don't get sick easy. Thank God on that. But yeah, that's definitely played a role in my disordered eating of keeping things way too long, because of fear that I won't have something later on. And I believe that's all I really have. I to say, actually, I guess I'd like to end with saying that I just hope in general that others uh with multiple disabilities or upbringings can understand and know you're not alone too. Because like I said, I try to seek help, and it's just hard to find. Being a disabled person in general, it's hard to find any type of help. But then having multiple disabilities, and then with eating in general, nutrition, that is its own can of worms, I guess you would say. And just don't give up. We're here. I'm here for you, and keep on moving.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I really appreciate you and Opal being so open and honest and really sharing so much of yourselves. So I know we talked a little bit last course about how that fear of not having enough food can spark eating disorders and disordered eating that can start in childhood and grow through adulthood. And I really appreciate Jenny hitting on that. Because things that happen to people and the labels that we hold, whether somebody else puts that on us or whether we identify as that label ourselves, people are very multifaceted. So we don't just live in a silo where if you have disordered eating, you are just dealing with disordered eating. And if you have a disability, you're just dealing with a disability, right? Or if you live in a rural area where it's hard to find transportation, you're just dealing with transportation. All of these things interconnect and make it much more complicated and difficult for somebody to access the things they need and to feel comfortable even bringing that up. And like Jenny said, knowing where to go and who to speak to about it. And Susannah, I'm wondering if, since we have you on the call, if there's, anything from your perspective as a nutritionist, any tips or insight or information that you would give to people who are on this call so that for the Opals and the Jennies and the other community members in their lives, they know how to, maybe to best support them, hearing both from Jenny and Opal themselves and then hearing from a nutritionist.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I just have to really echo what everyone has said. And thank you, both Jenny and Opal, on your willingness to share your experience and all that you have been through on this journey. I think that you exposed a lot of what makes not only our thoughts, behaviors around eating as humans real and complicated, but you really shed light on why having a disability can make it even more layers of complexity. So, as Jenny just said, I think one of the big things is when we are able to then, take the next steps, realize there is something going on and we would like help. How having a disability then throws another curveball and we don't always fit into the frameworks like BMI, like energy expenditure. So how many calories when there's equations involved we may need. I like to be called those crap because that's a pretty good term. They're already very broad anyways. And another thing both of you really shed light onto are that there are many contributing factors involved. And then, disabilities increase the number of factors that can be. And I think you guys really highlighted just some of the many deep ones that exist. As a dietitian, what I have been trained to know is that in general, nutrition is so individualized. Really, I think what it boils down to is, trying to figure out what works best for you, for your clients, and then finding where their baseline is, and then really working with them on what works, what doesn't, taking small steps so you can learn exactly what things are working, what variables are helping, and what are not helping is one important step when you're trying to work with a person with a disability on their nutrition. Also, I think as a person with a disability, one thing I have learned is, to learn as much about my own disability as I can. The physiological consequences or results of my disability, which can be very challenging, especially when there are multiple disabilities present. A lot of times we are an N of one. And so just honestly trying our best to find out what the physiological, consequences of our disability are, and then being able to really advocate that to our health professionals and our care team so that we aren't just shoved aside like, oh, you don't fit in this, you're morbidly obese, you're not doing it right, you have to get the surgery because you messed up as a little kid. I don't think that that is at all the right way. So I think as patients ourselves, trying to understand our disability as much as possible, really trying to know what we eat and drink and our physical activity, how those things are impacting our health, and then advocating that to the doctors and the dietitians so that we can give them as much information as possible to then help find those individual variables that might make the difference. That's a big one. I think writing down, keeping track of how what we eat is influencing our health and how we're feeling, and those kind of things can be very helpful information to give to people that you reach out to. And then also, from a step outside of the person with a disabilities perspective, realizing that these things are so complex, that the person is working through something that's very challenging for them, and being open and supportive of that. We will never know exactly what someone else is going through. And so listening, trying our best to understand. So asking questions to help understand, and really just supporting others as they are trying to, take their own health and their life into their own hands, and being supportive. So I hope that is helpful. Kind of broad, but it is a very individualized topic. And so I think, can do a lot better of a job of listening to people's concerns, listening to their experience, and then trying to build off of what they're physically going through to make their individualized approach effective.
Great. Thank you so much, Susannah.
Of
And
course. Thank you guys for
um,
sharing.
yeah, if anybody has questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I want to transition from talking about what some of the barriers and experiences for people with disabilities are when it comes to getting, well-informed care and support, and shift over into what are some ways that we can provide some adaptive and accessible resources and opportunities when it comes to food access, food justice, farming, cooking. And so I want to introduce you to our next speakers, Yvonne Boltz and Abby Marsh. And their photos are up on the screen right now, but I am going to let them introduce themselves and do a visual description of themselves. So I'm going to hand it over to you two.
Hi, everybody. I'm Yvonne Boltz. I'm a Caucasian 55-year-old woman with my hair pulled back, a pair of glasses on, and a black shirt. And I probably look rather frazzled, but that's kind of normal when you start farming after 50 years old. So,
Did you say able-bodied?
what?
Did you say?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I am able-bodied. I apologize. Yes.
Hi, guys. My name is Abby. I am a 29-year-old white woman, and I'm a quadriplegic. I have a disability that affects paralysis in all four limbs. Visually, my hands are paralyzed and contracted into a fist. I have paralysis in my arms, but they're not so visible until you see me try to raise my hand up, and then it just claps and hits my head. And then, of course, I use power chair to get around. And in the image, you cannot see, but if you cannot see it, it is my service dog, Scarletta, and she is the best partner in crime. And she's a yellow Labrador. And then in Yvonne's photo is Rio, one of the livestock guardian dogs, and he's a Pyrenees with white, fluffy, long hair.
He's a big boy.
He is big. So we are Boltz Strong and Boltz Donuts Farm. And we are a for-profit, nonprofit hybrid. And I would love to share a little bit of our history. On this slide is an image of Leo. He is a 12-year-old boy. 11. He is cutting up, he's preparing salsa, and he's using a knife guide, and I'll describe what a knife guide is later with a regular knife. And he's doing great. And then on the other image is one of our Boltz Strong cooking classes. And it's a group photo of a bunch of people prepping food and having a good time.
Many of them are in wheelchairs, and it's a mixture of disabilities. It can be a physical disability, a congenital disability, an acquired disability, cognitive disabilities. But we all work together as a group, and we create that community together where everybody is equal, and we all work together to solve the problems that are needed to be solved so that we can all cook together. And then share a meal at the end.
So if you go to the next slide, I think, so this is why we started Boltz to Nuts and Boltz Strong.
The image on the screen is actually probably from the third day that my husband was in his inpatient rehab following his spinal cord injury in September of 2015.
In 2015, Eric and Yvonne's lives took a drastic turn when Eric was left paralyzed from the chest down after being struck by a negligent motorist during a routine training ride. Prior to the accident, Eric had been an avid amateur cyclist, heavily involved in competitive races and logging over 10,000 annual miles on his bike. Supported by his teammates in the Cincinnati cycling community, Eric and Yvonne faced the challenges of a spinal cord injury, grappling with issues such as severe spasms, neuropathic pain, and managing bodily functions. Dissatisfied with conventional drug therapies due to their limited effectiveness and adverse side effects, they embarked on a journey to develop natural supplements to alleviate these symptoms, aiming to benefit both disabled and able-bodied individuals. But Yvonne and Eric, they wanted more, and so to be more than just a natural supplier, they set out to build a place that is accessible, from the fully accessible food preparation kitchen and in the hemp processing center to the raised garden beds designed for wheelchair access, to manufacturing processes designed with different abilities in mind. To complete the mission of Boltz to Nuts Farm, the Boltzes also decided to start Boltz Strong and host other disabled people to learn how to garden and cook adaptively, and to spend time with others who are coping with similar challenges. The initial stages of learning with a disability are about grief, acceptance, and moving forward. That's why hosting recently injured people is so important, because shining a light on the possibilities of life with disability provides hope that is desperately needed in these early days. The nonprofit arm of Boltz to Nuts Farm is our 501c3 Boltz Strong, which helps to cover the costs of associated with hosting disabled persons, but the farm itself funds development of the farm, from wheelchair pathways to raised beds, with income from the sale of produce, eggs, and hemp products grown and or processed at the farm.
Okay, next slide. Okay, so our vision at Boltz Strong is to create a community where people with physical disabilities have the tools and support they need to achieve independence in the kitchen and lead active lifestyles. We're committed to providing accessible cooking classes that promote personal growth, community building, and self-sufficiency. In our view, food is medicine. And as you know, we all have individual needs, and therefore that medicine may be different for each of us. Our mission is to offer adaptive cooking and farming experiences in a supportive, welcoming environment for people with disabilities. Through our accessible community programs, participants can build skills, confidence, and independence. In every class, we provide adapted devices, we problem solve together, which is really important, and strategize the best direction for independence while cooking a delicious meal together and sharing a common human experience. Next slide.
And then next slide, right before this one, we want to show a video that tours the kitchen, and there's audio with it as well.
It's this video, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, perfect. I will play it.
Great. Have you ever seen a public wheelchair accessible kitchen? Eric and Yvonne have always loved to cook, so when they started the farm, they knew creating a public kitchen to host and share with wheelchair-using friends was necessary. In our kitchen, you can do all sorts of tasks with accessibility in mind. You can adjust the counter height, the cabinet height, the sink height. The range is an inductive cooktop and an open bottom, easy for rolling under, and can be remote controlled. We have 2 wall ovens with French doors installed at convenient heights for safe and easy lifting. The corner is the optimal place to sit, as you're close to the sink and the cooktops, with counter space to move dishes around, safe and easily. Then we recently added 2 islands at different heights. Every inch of this kitchen was designed for accessibility, and we are so excited to see the impact it will have on our community. So if you're stuck in your kitchen and you're in Ohio, come on over to the farm and let's cook together. Those with cognitive and or physical limitations are welcomed, as our kitchen has several modifications and is fully wheelchair accessible. Like we saw, the counters and cabinets elevate to your desired height. The oven is roll under. The ovens are roll under, and they have French doors, so they open simultaneously. And we have an inductive cooktop to provide low risk and a low risk environment in the kitchen, to limit chances of you accidentally burning yourself. And then along with that, we have numerous specialized and adaptive tools for helping to overcome physical limitations. Our goal is for you to have a happy and healthy independent lifestyle, no matter how that looks.
You're going to describe the images.
Yeah, so below on this slide on the bottom, there are 4 images. One is actually myself using a box chopper. That adaptive tool is a little hard to clean, but it does its job very fast. So it can mince or chop things in a variety of sizes. All you do is put the onion or potato, whatever it is, on the grid, and then you slam it shut and it chops it. Next is our buddy Derek. He's a quadriplegic like myself. He's using a one-handed cutting board and a quad knife.
Cutting okra.
And he's cutting okra, yes. I will describe those tools later in the slide. The next picture is our friend Jenny, who just spoke, and she's using our elevating cooktop, and she's standing, but next to her is our buddy Matt, who's a quadriplegic as well, and he's fitted completely under the counter and cooktop and is working right next to her. And then in the next image is our friends Luke and Rob. They're using manual chairs, and they're at the same cooktop, and are hanging out, cooking and smiling real big, because cooking in this kitchen is fun.
Let's go to the next slide.
Yes. Okay.
We already saw that. So next
Yep,
slide.
I changed the order a little bit. Thank you. Okay, so this is the fun part where we get to talk about adaptive devices you can use if you have physical limitations, or if you don't, because one of these I'll mention is the jar opener, which plenty of people use.
Love the jar opener.
Yes. So the first one is the quad mini reacher. It's on the image in the top left. This was designed by a quadriplegic, and it is it's wrapped around your forearm and a little bit above your hand. And when you lift your wrist up, it closes the claw right in front of your hand. So you can pick up any item just by lifting your wrist. A lot of devices like this are designed to squeeze the handle. And if you are quadriplegic with paralysis in your hand, you cannot do that. So this is all you need to do is lift your wrist. The next tool is called a quad tools tongs. It is at the bottom. It is similar. It's from the same company as Quad Tools. It's similar to the mini reacher and how it activates. It wraps around your forearm with some bars. It's stainless steel, and you use tongs, and the way you close the tongs is by lifting the wrist up again. So that's really great. We did a grilling cooking class, and we had plenty of quadriplegics on the grill. It was awesome. The next tool is adaptive utensils. These can come in a variety of styles. The one we have on this slideshow is a fork, and there's a massive grip attached to the end of it, which is good if you have a hard time closing your hand or holding onto it strong. There's also a grip on this silicone, so it won't slide. And there's also ridges on the silicone, so it also helps to not slide around. And I love using these specifically. Next is a jar opener. This has two sets of arms on the jar opener. One set of arms holds the jar. The other set of arms twists the lid. And there's a big button on top of it. So that's literally all you have to hit is this massive button. And it's pretty hard to miss because it's so massive. And it opens anything. Brand new tight jars, right, Yvonne? Yep. And then the next is the easy hold. And these can go on anything in this image. It's a strap wrapped around a toothbrush or a hairbrush. We use them for anything in the kitchen, like a spatula, a slotted spoon, or for mixing, anything, and they're great, and they come in a variety of sizes. And the next slide, we have one-handed cutting board. This is a large, it's about like 1.5 feet.
No, it's a 12-inch square.
12, okay. So 12-inch square, and this is plastic, but it's pretty durable. The one section of it has pegs coming from the bottom, so you can like push a potato on it, and that's going to stabilize the potato. So if, say you have one functional arm and hand, or if you're like myself, I need to use two hands to use the quad knife sometimes. And so the pegs stabilize the potato. And then another section of this cutting board is a customized, I don't know how you would describe it, but you can move
it's an adjustable width wedge where you can hold a loaf of bread or a vegetable or a piece of fruit or something, and you can move the pegs or move that flat edge to squeeze things in so that you can hold them while you cut them.
So it's totally customizable, and it's really great and pretty easy to use. The next is a knife guide. This is something you would hold with one hand, and then you would use your knife in the other hand. It has pegs coming out of the handle, and it has several slots. So you can, say, hold a cucumber down with the knife guide and then slide your knife into each slot without moving the knife guide.
It allows you to easily make slices
Mhm.
by going between the tines with a knife
Mhm.
and not cut your fingers.
Yes, and we use that in every class. They're great. Next is a rotary grinder. If you have trouble shredding cheese or a carrot, it can cut a variety of sizes as well and slices. We also have a motorized one that Jenny has been really successful at using. So you have some options there, and it cuts things so fast. I found this on TikTok used by able-bodied people, and I thought, well, that would be perfect.
Mhm.
And it is. Next is a mezzaluna knife or an ulu knife, and it is, if you have used a rocker knife, it's about the same thing. It has a U-shaped blade and a handle right on top, so you can use a lot of your body weight and push down and hold, or yeah. Next is a quad tool knife. This is from the same company we mentioned earlier with the tongs and the mini reacher. This is a knife that wraps around, a portion of it wraps around your forearm, but the knife blade sticks out past your hand. And so you don't need to hold the actual knife to cut it. It just wraps around your forearm. And I use this every time I'm in the kitchen, and it's really, really good knife. Next knife is it's a right angle knife. I have many friends that use these. It's like an L-shaped knife with the blade being parallel to the counter, and then the handle of it is sticking straight up perpendicular to the table and blade.
Next slide.
And then this is miscellaneous adaptive tools. And this is the last slide for adaptive tools, I believe. The first one is electric salt and pepper grinder. If you like fresh cracked pepper, fresh grinded salt, you'll know it's hard to twist the tool, the grinder. So all you have to do is turn it on and then flip it upside down, and the gravity activates the salt to tip out and grind and pepper. Next is an egg cracker. If you have hard time managing the shells and opening it, all you have to do is put the egg in to the device and squeeze the handle, and it cracks it. Next is a silicone mat. You can put this on a counter. We use it on the counter and on the inductive stove because of the functionality of the induction, that it's not going to melt the plastic, and this plastic mat also has a high, I guess, retention.
So using the silicone mat still allows the field from the inductive cooktop to pass through to the ferromagnetic pan,
Mhm.
and also keeps it from sliding around. Because if you've ever used a glass cooktop and you have a pan on there, you try to stir with one hand, it's going to go all over the place. By putting down that silicone mat, it holds it steady. That also helps us on tables or other surfaces that are very smooth where things slide.
And then the next is the garlic chopper. If you
It's
wanna-
like a box chopper.
Yeah, it's like a mini box chopper if you want to cut garlic up real fast. All you have to do is put it on the grid and close it shut. And then the next is electric can opener. All you do is put this oval-like device on top of the can, push the button and let go, and it's going to,
Cuts the can.
yeah, it's gonna turn around and cut it.
Next slide.
So this is going to be quick tips on adapting ingredients. And then in the next slideshow, or in the next slides, we also have recipes for you guys to try. So to prep ingredients, to make it easy, you can prep them in the beginning of the week. If you have a caregiver around, you could also have them help.
And you can do that with your partner if you have a partner. And you know, it's whether you're able-bodied or disabled, it's always a good idea to kind of start your week off with a plan of what you're going to do.
Yes. At the grocery, there are options for frozen pre-cut veggies, and you can also do this with a caregiver. peeling garlic is really difficult, so you can buy peeled bags of peeled garlic, which is great. Or you can use a garlic press that we showed earlier. Alternatively, there are jars and tubes of minced garlic. There's also frozen options of minced garlic that you can get at somewhere like Trader Joe's. One option my friend uses is garlic powder and garlic flakes. This will reserve a lot of energy, but you will lose the fresh flavor as well. But it is an alternate option.
A lot of places you can get frozen minced garlic, ginger, onions, herbs that are in 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon portions. So that's really easy to do. You can also buy rotisserie chickens. You can take the skin off, take the fat off, and shred those, put them in the freezer in aliquots that you can eat at different times. You can put your silicone mats underneath your bowls like we talked about. And the other thing is for things like grains and rices, because those can take a long time to cook. Early in the week, you can cook up a big portion, put them in individual portions or multi-portion containers in your freezer and reheat them later in the week.
Yep.
Next slide.
So I'm not going to go through every detail of this recipe, but if you would like to keep it, there is a QR code. This recipe is also called 1 pot spinach artichoke chicken pasta. And
the important part here is that it's 1 pot. So it's one thing to deal with. You don't have to drain pasta. So, you don't have to drain the pasta. It's 1 pot to clean up later, and it's ready in a very short amount of time with good ingredients.
And what Yvonne means by you don't have to drain the pasta is that this recipe uses a very specific amount of water or chicken stock, and the pasta eventually cooks into, the liquid eventually cooks into the pasta or evaporates.
It becomes part of the sauce.
It becomes part of the sauce, yes. And we love using these in our cooking classes.
Next slide.
So-
Here's some other recipes that are 1 pot that are nice and easy and healthy. We can go on.
Yeah.
I like to say with vegetable, so frittatas are just crustless quiche. It's a good way to get a solid protein, a complete protein. It's also a way that what I like to call it like a garbage night dinner or a garbage breakfast, because just take whatever's in your fridge, what vegetables you have, use them in this. They work really well. You can make, this is one for an individual size portion. You can do this in a little pie plate or in a ramekin. It's easy. If you want to make it for a brunch for the family, just increase it however many eggs you need and the appropriate ingredients per person. But, you can be adventurous with this and have a good time.
Yes.
So we go to the next slide. So again, like I said, we view food as medicine. Okay. And everybody has to decide what that medicine is. If you have a spinal cord injury, you need more protein. If you have neurogenic bowel, you probably don't want to eat a very high fiber diet. So you have to make adjustments based on that. And you work with that with your nutritionist or your doctor on what your body needs. But one of the easiest things to do for yourself, and something you can plan ahead with, is to do bowls, like the Chipotle or Mediterranean bowls or Bippy Bop, whatever. And so the way I look at cooking and the way I've tried to help people understand is it's like a silo. You know what a silo is? It's, something that holds one thing. Okay. So if you look at the ingredients to a bowl as each being a silo, your base, your vegetables, your protein, and your toppings, you can mix and match and make any number of things. So I know a lot of us like to cook from a recipe, but when we get to an ingredient that we don't have, and then we stop. But what you do here is you put things in categories and you say, okay, so here's my bases: lettuce, beans, rice, whatever, right? So I don't have brown rice. Okay, I have chickpeas. That's my base. So you can mix it up. Use a variety of vegetables, color up your plate, make them the right size, bite-sized portions. Proteins can be anything from Greek yogurt to eggs to lean meats to fish, plant-based proteins, all good. And then the toppings that come in, you can use fresh herbs, hemp seeds, dressings, or sauces. Just be careful with your dressings and sauces because those tend to be higher sources of sodium and fat. And then we're going to go on. So I just want to get through a little bit faster because I know we're over already. So we can go to the next slide. Something else that you can do, even if you have a small apartment, is you can grow some things in your small space or in your larger space. If you have a window, put some herbs in there with a windowsill box, or just some pots that you can get at the store. If you trim down your basil, there's I can send you ways to do it where you'll keep getting fresh basil leaves that you can keep that plant for months and months at a time. If you have a deck or a patio, you can put some pots on that. You can even grow garlic in a pot on your patio. Hanging pots are nice because a lot of plants will grow downward, like cherry tomatoes, peppers, other things. You can train them to grow downward so it doesn't grow up and then you have it coming down like a cascade, but it takes up a smaller space. The medium-sized space, you can do one of these roll under beds that's seen in the photo. So there's in the photos, I didn't describe these, sorry. There's some hanging plants that are there, and you can grow herbs that way. You can grow tomatoes that way. Off to the right side is a roll under wheelchair accessible bed from Gardener's Supply. So that accommodates both a power chair and a regular chair. They're shallower. You're limited in what you can grow in it because of hard freezes and things of that sort. But at least it's accessible. It makes it possible. And then below that is a windowsill herb garden. So it's just nice to have that. There's also ways to use your used produce to make something new with it. Like I take my green onions, cut the roots off, put them in water, and they re-sprout. So I have green onions going constantly. Large pots are great. In large spaces, you can do a trellis, which is where you take fencing or something that plants can grow on, and you make an arch with that. You can grow squash that way. You can grow beans that way. You can grow lots of things. So if we go to the next slide, some of the things that you may want to grow that, okay, I guess I guess I was supposed to say. So in larger spaces, you can go ahead and you can grow things like bush beans. And if you have a trellis, you can grow, what are those dang things called? The climbing beans. Can't think what it's called. There's all kinds of things. You can do herbs because herbs are great ways to cheaply make your food taste better and use less salt. Good vegetables for small spaces are things like cherry tomatoes, small peppers. Lettuce is great because you grow it, you cut it, then you plant more. Cucumbers in a pot work great. Spinach and kale, all these things are good for small spaces. And so now we're on the adaptive garden tools. And guess we went to there. There we go.
So on this slide, we have a variety of images for adaptive gardening tools. One of them is the ergonomic gardening hand tool set. This is just regular garden tools, but the handles are in a U shape. This is great. I use them with my paralyzed hands. I'm able to brace my wrist and my fingers against it and able to pull. The next is an outdoor rolling garden scooter with adjustable 360-degree swivel seat. This you can, if you're a little bit ambulatory and have some leg strength, you could push around, but be somewhat lower if you don't have an accessible bed. You can be lower to the ground, and this seat swivels so you can spin around depending on your garden setup. Next is a secondary handle. If you have a long garden tool already, but you want to adapt it, you can add a second handle to it and be able to use it that way. If you need a little extra leverage, you can push with two hands as well. It's a little easier. Long reach garden tools is great if you're gardening from a wheelchair, even if you're gardening from a wheelchair and in an accessible bed, depending on how big it is.
How far you have to reach across.
Yeah, how far you have to reach. These are a great alternative. They are a little heavy, but they're good. They're good stuff.
Maybe they can be adapted to use carbon fiber.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we're not telling you that this is going to be easy. We're just telling you ways to make it possible. So I think we'll go on to the next slide. Actually, the picture in here are dragon tongue beans, which they are my absolute favorite. They're beautiful. They taste fabulous. They're productive and prolific, and you will not be disappointed if you want to grow those.
And they're purple and yellow.
Purple and yellow. It's pretty cool. And then next slide is we just want to tell you, thank you so much. Thank you, Kelly's Kitchen, for the opportunity to present to you today and for all that you do in the communities that you serve. You're a great partner to work with.
And if you'd like to follow us on social media, we have two accounts, one for the farm and one for the kitchen. It's Boltz the number 2, Boltz 2 Nuts Farm, and the other is Boltz Strong Nonprofit.
Thank you all for participating in this forum and for giving us your attention and time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yvonne and Abby. That's been fantastic. The only thing that I want to remind you all of before we head out is that our final course, kind of putting it all together, how to make a difference in your community, where we do some call to action on next steps, will occur May 14th at 3:30 p.m. EST. And then we have an evaluation survey. There's a QR code on the screen right now. When I close this webinar, that the survey will automatically pop up. We would really appreciate if you could give your feedback. And I will be sending out resources after this. I'll make sure that everybody has contact information for all of our presenters so that you can reach out and get in touch with them individually as well. And thank you so much and have a great rest of your night.